was relatively quiet this morning, but such was to expected on a Saturday morning. There was an old couple reading the paper far in the right corner of the coffee shop, sipping their respective cups of joe. A middle-aged man and a woman also sat at a table and talked to the table closest to the register while drinking their morning brew. Another brunette girl who looked to be around 25 drank her iced coffee in the table in the far left corner. Was it doing what appeared to be homework? Dusk was a bit annoyed with Foreign over last night. She thought the group was hospitable, but following the newbies to join, but of course deepening her knowledge about songwriting. Nevertheless, she wanted to try to forget about her frustration and just enjoy this time with her potential new friend. She headed up to the front counter with the usual black coffee and saw that Anne was running the counter today rather than Haley. Dusk felt like it had been some lifetime ago, but since she had seen Annie, even though upon giving it further thought, she realized it only had been since their album release party. The tour was an emotionally all-consuming that before she felt like a completely and different chapter of her life. "Hey Anne, I'll just take a black coffee, no sugar or cream," Dusk informed the barista. "Sure, I'll get that started right away," Anne promised. At that moment, Dusk saw Dawn walk into the front door. She was wearing the salmon-colored shirt and gray shorts. "What's up?" Dawn greeted. "Hey, where do you want to sit?" Dusk asked, prompting Dawn to glance around for her preference of spots. "We could take that spot over there by the brunette, across from that big TV, Dawn suggested. "Go ahead and sit down. I'm gonna go get my drink first." Dusk headed over to claim the spot by the girl doing her homework before anyone else took it. She casually glanced up at the TV, which was airing some news show. While she waited for her new acquaintance, it was in a matter of moments Dawn joined her. "Okay, I ordered my usual," Dawn informed, quickly elaborating. "A dark roast, with a bit of a creamer and sugar." "Hey, I love black coffee too," Dusk exclaimed. "Thank God you're not one of those people who orders like a milkshake and calls it coffee." "Yeah, I could never get into those. If I wanted a milkshake, I'd just go buy one instead of, well, sipping in a little caffeine there and calling it my morning coffee," Dawn joked. "So I know that you're in a band. But what else do you do for fun?" Dusk immediately felt a bit embarrassed. Admittedly, besides hanging out with Ford and Luna, reading and walking in nature and writing songs, she didn't really have very much of a routine working outside of Jack's. She didn't even go to any clubs or do anything that nearly felt cool enough to share with Dawn. Perhaps that's why she was feeling a hole in her life recently. She barely had anything that was going on. "Well, when I'm not working around the clock of the restaurant or writing songs, I go out." Dusk profusely left her remark vague, hoping Dawn would believe going out implied into doing something cool. "Neat, where do you work?" Dawn inquired. Dusk was glad that she hadn't inquired further about going out remark. "Have you ever been to Jack's?" Dusk asked. "Oh yeah, I think I've been there a couple times. You mean that place downtown?" Dawn wondered. "Yep, that's where I work." Dusk nodded. "Oh cool, I work at Oak Haven Books," Dawn informed. "I really don't like working there, but I make it work." "Why do you stay there if you don't like it?" Dusk questioned. "I needed to get a job so I could move out, so I couldn't stand being there with my old man for a moment longer," Dawn admitted. "You don't like your dad?" Dusk had to stop herself from adding either at the end of the sentence. She wasn't quite ready to share that part of herself yet, even if she and Dawn were getting along quite well. "Oh God, no. He's so judgmental. He doesn't agree with my songwriter lifestyle and says I should go being to work like normal like a good girl would." Dawn's voice was almost took on a growl. Clearly she was very passionate of her hatred of her parents. Dusk wouldn't typically reveal this to a stranger, but given that Dawn's experienced similar issues with her parents, maybe she also sympathized with Dusk's parental issues. "Yeah, I'm in a similar situation. My old man's been judging me and always saying being a musician isn't a real job," Dusk admitted. "Well, screw him, and screw my dumb old man, too." Dawn's voice remained a bit bitter and aggressive. Hopefully, we'll become successful so we could prove our dad's worthless asses wrong. I'm definitely trying, Dusk admitted. What are you thinking of a career? I mean, do you want to perform songs too? Or just write them for other artists? I'm not sure yet, Dawn confessed. One thing's for sure though, I certainly don't want to be working in an old dusty bookstore like I am now. It's literally just the worst, stocking shelves and helping customers find books all day. I feel like a freaking geek. Dusk admittedly didn't have a bad connotation associated with being a geek like Dawn did, but she clearly understood how working in a bookstore day in and day out wouldn't be a fulfilling job. I'm nowhere near to committing this, but honestly, if songwriting didn't pan out, I think I would kind of do something with the environment would be cool. I don't know what it would be like, but I imagine the job would require me to go to college and do a lot of science, to which I hate. I think it'd be cool with the environment, though. I've always liked that, Dawn shared. I see why you like it. That protest yesterday was pretty wicked, Dusk responded. You should probably come to another one, Julia said, and that the next one will be whenever the mayor announces the rescheduled evacuation. Well, evacuation or something, Dawn invited. Yeah, I'd totally go to one, Dusk agreed, before adding the cab seat as she hoped to make her seem cool. Somebody's got to teach that old-timer Mayor Corey that people prefer to take their children to a park, not an oil rig. Ha! Dawn chuckled. You know you're pretty cool, Dusk. All of a sudden, the TV on the wall across them had the words "Breaking News Flash" across the screen, with the urgent-sounding jingle that Dusk remembered hearing throughout her childhood whenever her dad had the news on. The usual news announcer of Oakhaven, Nancy Chain, then quickly popped on the screen, and the anchor had black hair and donned a purple button-up blouse. We interrupt this weather report for a breaking news from our mayor's office regarding the oil pipeline, Nancy announced. Mayor Corey just released the official statement sharing the construction for the pipeline, scheduled to run for our town, was halted on Friday due to unfortunate circumstances with protesters. However, he's happy to announce that the construction will continue on schedule on Monday afternoon at 1. Damn it, my shift goes on until the 3 that day, Dawn swore. Actually, my shift will have just ended, so I'll be there to fulfill you in afterwards, Dusk offered. I could tell you on Friday at the next group meeting. I mean, if you have time, you can feel free to stop by the bookstore, Dawn offered. My shift will probably just be ending when the protest is over, and even if it's not, I could use a visitor to make the job not so fucking boring. Sure, I'd love to fill that in, Dusk exclaimed. She was so happy that she and Dawn seemed to be bonding over so many things. Dusk had the feeling that her job was just the beginning of what could become a beautiful friendship. Dusk couldn't believe how fast the weekend passed. It was already Monday and she had just wrapped up her shift at Jack's for the day. As per usual, Thorn and Luna both headed down to eat at Jack's for lunch, although today they didn't have anything music-wise to discuss like they usually did, which admittedly was a bit odd for Dusk, given how accustomed that she had grown to the ritual. They were usually on the show way over to Protesta Park, to which it would start to set in a few minutes. She asked Jack about to leave 15 minutes early, but it still wasn't quite enough time to compensate the lost time. Dusk had drove 7 miles over past the limit, and she hoped that she wouldn't get caught. Are you both excited for the protest? Thorn inquired of their bandmates. Yeah, I can't wait, Dusk exclaimed. She couldn't believe how she'd been so down in the state of the band just a few days ago, and now that it felt like everything was looking up to her. She found it a cool group of people who liked writing songs as much as she did. Even she made a new friend. Moderately, Luna said, before promptly elaborating. It kind of was an intense environment for my liking and confrontation, but the impact we're making is worth it. The soccer mom van quickly pulled up to a sign near the parking lot. Dusk admittedly had been paying attention closely as she could, but she wanted to make sure that they got a lot go by there, and by the time the protest had started at 1. Geez, Dusk, you pulled up a little fast there, Luna remarked. We preferably like to make the protest alive. Thorne commented. Luna definitely wasn't wrong about her stopping a bit abruptly, and on hindsight, it was a smart thing to do. However, Dusk was admittedly annoyed to the moment, intelligently respond to the comment, so she snapped instead. Well, sorry! I see the protest. It's by the bench this time, Luna pointed out, ignoring Dusk's outburst. Dusk took out the driver's window and saw that her redhead friend was correct. The people of protesters were all gathered around the bench where the same construction worker was preparing to break the ground with his bulldozer. The blonde quickly parked the vehicle, and the three of the girls got out of the car, rushing over to see the commotion. Oh, so it's you dames again, the same construction worker sneered. I'm gonna have to ask you to move. We already told you we're not moving, Juliet challenged. Well, if you're not moving, I came prepared this time. The construction worker wore a sly grin on his face. Dusk had absolutely no idea what the guy was planning to do, but she assumed it was going to be something dumb that wouldn't actually prevent them from moving or protesting. What is he gonna do? The brown-haired teenage kid that Dusk remembered from yesterday snarled. May I have everyone's attention, please? A familiar voice said. Thorne and Luna's jaws almost dropped to the floor at this point, while Just stayed at the cindery. She was quite shocked to see who it was. The town's mayor had came out to end the protesting. This is a city-approved project, so I'm gonna have to ask you to stop protesting, Mayor Corey requested. His voice was kind with the hint of sternness. Oh yeah? What if we don't? The brown-haired guy snapped. Mayor Corey was quite soft-spoken and was never all that negative about anything. So his response was expressed relatively gentle, even though this idea could receive as a tad threatening. Well, I'm afraid we'll have to phone the authorities to escort you off the premises. We've already lost a full day of work, and well, quite frankly, I don't see the purpose on losing more. This has got everyone's attention. Everyone started disbanding and walking away disgruntledly in a semi-orderly fashion, including Julia. Thorne and Luna also began walking away, but in a much quicker fashion, almost as if they were embarrassed. They quickly stopped when they heard their names being exclaimed in shock. Thorne, Luna, Dusk? Mayor Corey gasped. I never thought I'd see you mixed up into something like this. We're sorry, Luna stuttered. We just saw the commotion and we were headed over there. We weren't sure what was going on, honest, Thorne said in a panicked tone. Oh, well, that makes me a whole lot better. These protesters delayed us drilling last week, and I came out here today to hopefully prevent it from happening again, Mayor Corey informed. Out of curiosity, what's the deal with this oil pipeline anyway? I'm surprised you didn't want to put it somewhere crappy out of the way. Not that I'm agreeing with the protesters or anything. I'm just wondering, Dusk inquired. She personally couldn't care less whether or not the mayor thought she was in cahoots with the protesters or not. However, she knew that Thorne and Luna's families had good relationships with the mayor, so she didn't want to incriminate them. Well, to be honest with you girls, I'm not a huge fan of putting it either. However, it's best at the most efficient place to have the pipeline run through. According to the company that's building it, they're having to run through it in multiple cities, so I didn't really get much over of saying it. The countries who made the decisions would have to go along with them. So we'll just have to make the part into a smaller accommodation with the pipeline coming through here, Mayor Corey shared. There's nothing much I can do, unfortunately, since it's safe to have a pipeline run through here, and it's more convenient for the company. Okay, well, thanks for explaining, Thorne replied in a monotone voice, although Dusk could tell that there was a lack of passion in her voice that seemed rather frustrated rather than disinterested. I'm glad we got these protesters to disband now. Now, if you excuse me, I have to get back to my office. I've got a very busy day ahead. Also, so good to see you girls again, the mayor exclaimed as he headed back to talk to the construction worker guy briefly. Once they were sure the mayor was out of hearing distance, Luna breathed a sigh of relief. That was a close one. I was freaking out that he was going to figure we were a part of the protest, Thorne agreed. Honestly, I don't give a crap whatever he finds out if I'm involved, because whatever he's doing is still wrong, Dusk admitted. It doesn't sound like he has any control over it. It's the company that chose it to run through here, Luna pointed out. Well, yeah, but he could have stood up and told him no, Dusk defended. That's what I would do if I were mayor. You'd likely have a very short term in office then, Thorn chuckled. Ha ha, very funny, Dusk snipped. Anyway, wait, you two can head home without me. I'm gonna meet Dawn at the bookstore. Oh, okay, Luna said, seeming a little bit surprised. She admittedly forgot to bring it up with her two bandmates previously, but she didn't see how it mattered whatever they were in the knew what she was doing. It was her life after all, not theirs. Well, I guess we'll see you later then, Thorn responded. What's the problem? Dusk questioned, noticing her friend's awkward tone. Oh, no problem. I think it's just getting a little surprising to both that you haven't spent either time with friends and you're hanging out with Dawn practically every day now. I'm glad you two are getting close though, Thorn remarked. So am I, Dusk smiled. As Dusk approached the bookstore, she was admittedly a bit surprised of how large it was. She, Thorn, and Luna never spent any time in there, so she had no idea what the place looked like. The last time she remembered being in there was when perhaps she was in high school, but so she didn't practically remember very much about it. Upon coming in the front door, she was impressed by how expansive the place was. The place had at least 15 aisles, with all kinds of books on sides organized by genre. In the right corner there was a small cafe where it appeared that you could order coffee as well as a few fresh bakery items. Hey, Dusk, a familiar voice called out to the blonde. Dawn was standing at the aisles, stocking books hooks on the shelves, and looked half-bit depressed. Dusk quickly headed over to her friend. Wow, this place is... Dusk started before she was cut off by Dawn. Boring? Yeah, I know. I hate being here day and out. I'm on an endless sea of books. I don't even like reading, Dawn eliminated. At this point, I just can't wait for my songwriting career to blow up. Dusk was about to compliment about the bookstore, but she didn't want to disagree with her new friend or make her think that she was some book-loving nerd. So she simply went along with what says, Yeah, I hate to be working in this dump. So dusty and old school. Dusk generally dissed. At least you got a cafe, though. You'd think that would be the only good part, but the lady there is grumpy, out of touch, Dawn sighed. Oh well. So what do you do all day in here? Dusk inquired. Well, sometimes they have me stock shelves. Other times I'm at the checkout clerk. Today I'm just stocking shelves, Dawn shared. Admittedly, that did sound pretty boring to Dusk, so she wouldn't enjoy putting the books in shelves all day. Even though her job at Jack's was pretty millennial, she got some enjoyment out of taking the different customers and serving their food. Yeah, I could see why you don't like this job, Dusk said. Sometimes if I finish early, I'll pass the rest of the day by looking at the music. I'm really into music, so it helps the day go by a little faster, Dawn shared. What kind of music do you like besides ours? Dusk inquired with a small chuckle. I'm really into rock, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the Smashing Pumpkins, the Soundgarden. I like goth music too, and Beluas, as Dawn said. Some of the 80s rock bands are great too. Tears for Fears, Starship, Simple Minds, artists like that. Thorn and Luna weren't practically into the mainstream stuff, but Dusk quite liked most of the bands listed, with the exception of Red Hot Chili Peppers, who she never quite got into. Those bands are pretty awesome. I lean a little more into goth stuff, like Swarovski and the Banshees and The Cure. Some of the 80s bands you mentioned are awesome, though. Don't you forget about me, and Everyone Wants to Rule the World are great. Right? Dawn said and exclaimed. I'm so glad that somebody else seems to like them as much as I do. I don't know how many people who are into 80s stuff. Those people are in the group, aren't they? Dusk asked. Dayton is, but I don't know about the others, Dawn responded. Oh, I see. I thought you were friends with all of them or something, Dusk questioned. Some of them. Dayton has a friend of mine for a while, and I've been kinda know Kelsey, but not the rest. They're a part of the group, but I haven't hung out with them outside of the group or anything, Dawn replied. Dusk admittedly was a bit surprised, so she assumed that they were all close friends, but she realized she had never got asked until now. So we should definitely talk more about music at the moment, but right now I'm dying to know, how did the protest go? Dawn said. Before Dusk could get a response, A man in the red shirt behind them cleared his throat and spoke up. "Excuse me, ladies. I'm just trying to get through." Dusk hadn't realized that she was blocking the aisle, so she promptly moved out of the way. "Oops, my bad. Why don't we get something to calf and I tell you?" "Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'm getting pretty hungry, and to be honest," Dawn said as she headed over towards the cafe. There were a few tables and chairs over in the corner next to the cafe. One which was taken by a couple was chatting over some coffee. Nobody was currently staffing the cafe. "Is anyone around?" Dusk asked Dawn. "Yeah, she's somewhere. Probably just in the back cleaning or something," Dawn shrugged. "Well, we're still waiting. There's not really much to tell. The construction worker brought Mayor Corey, and he said that he was going to call the cops if we didn't stop blocking the construction," Dusk shared. "What?" Dawn snapped. "That's just dumb old bastard." "Yeah, we did get a little tidbit out of him. Well, I guess the company was constructing a pipeline across multiple cities. The park apparently was the most convenient place to run it," Dusk shared. "Yeah, but like the elevates of him was any responsibility," Dawn replied superiorly. "How in the world did you get him to tell you that?" "Ford and Luna's dads are friends with him," Dusk answered. "Really?" Dawn gave a strange look. "Ford and Dusk don't like him, do they?" Dusk honestly didn't know how to answer that, but they seemed to sympathize with him, and based on their last interaction, it seemed like they likely didn't get it was his fault about the pipeline. She didn't want Dawn to think badly of her friends, though, so she just fibbed a little. "No, they hate his guts, too." "Oh, I see what you guys did." Ford and Luna pretended to like him and secretly drill him for info. "Nice," Dawn smirked. "Yeah," Dusk plainly said. Not wanting to dig herself further into her fib, she was prompted to change the subject. "Hey, this coffee reminds me that we got a concert on Haley's on Wednesday at 1. If you want to show up, but you'll be welcome." "Well, I didn't know you guys performed there. Sure. It'd be neat to see you guys perform live," Dawn agreed. At that moment, that coffee shop lady came to the counter. "Hello, how are you?" Dusk greeted. "What can I get ya?" the woman robotically said. Dusk admitted to found it to be a bit rude, so she just took it as the old man was beaten down from her monotonous job and then a personal insult. "I'll just take a black coffee," Dusk ordered. "Same. I'll do a cookie as well," Dawn chimed in. "That's $4.41, the woman said. Dawn handed her the money in for the coffee and the cookie, while Dusk handed her a $1 bill for the coffee. "Have a good day," the woman sighed, sounding miserable. At that moment, Dawn turned to look at the woman and then leaned over to Dusk. "I will, no thanks to you, you old biddy," Dawn muttered. Dusk's jaw nearly dropped when Dawn said that, but she tried to keep herself contained. She couldn't believe anybody would say anything like that so close to the person whom was an insult intended for. "What did you say?" the woman asked. Dusk couldn't tell if she was actually overheard the comment or she was asking for them to speak up. "I said I'm giddy for this cookie," Dawn said, followed by a mischievous giggle. Dusk was used to be the edgiest one of the group, but Dawn was a bit more edgier and intense than she was. Surely she found it more entertaining than anything, as she never met anyone who spoke her mind just as quiet as much as her new friend. She admired that quality in Dawn, though. Dusk loved that she wasn't afraid to call people on their bullshit. It happened pretty idyllic that day, and with her new friend, whom Dusk found herself connecting more and more. They had just talked about a few things in the past hours. Everything from music to laminating about their parents to talking about their jobs. They've now been walking around town chatting for about 30 minutes. They were walking on the boulevards past Jack's when Dusk practically pointed out, "Hey, since I checked out your workplace, do you want to see mine?" Dusk suggested. "Sure, that'd be cool. I'm getting hungry anyway," Dawn agreed as she headed towards the restaurant. The parking lot didn't look overly busy. It was just the normal diner rush that Jack always had. She wasn't so sure how Dawn would react to the workplace, given how critical she was of her own. But when they headed down in the building, Dawn looked quite awestruck. "Whoa, this place is pretty nice. How's your boss, though? Does he suck as bad as mine?" Dawn inquired. "Oh no, God. Jack is great," Dusk assured. "That's good. Do we have to wait to be seated? Dawn asked. No, Jack doesn't care. We can just find an open booth and Jack will find us, Dusk replied. Oh, and actually here he is now. Hey, Dusk, Jack greeted as he walked past holding someone's entree on a platter. Oh, hey, that's not foreigner Luna. Who's your new friend? Jack, this is Dawn. Dawn, this is Jack, Dusk introduced. Good, nice to meet you, Dawn smiled. Nice to meet you too. I can't remember the last time I saw you in here. Somebody other than Foreign and Luna, Jack commented. Yeah, we just met at the... Dusk cut herself before she said protest, given that she didn't know how Jack would feel such a thing. At the bookstore the other day, she's really cool and we're into a lot of the same music. Great, sorry to run, but I gotta deliver this plate before this scalds me. Hot soup, you know? Jack joyfully chuckled. He then hurried in the direction. He seems nice, Dawn smiled. Speaking of music, so what's next for the band? You said you had released a single, which I checked out, it was great. Surely you're doing something to promote it though, right? Dawn asked. Dusk hadn't really considered it before, but this could be perfect chance to get somebody else's feedback on their dilemma with the music video. Dusk was still conflicted or whatever to release the video, but Dawn seemed really cool and acknowledged about music, so maybe she might have some advice. Actually, I'd like to get your input on something, Dusk said. We're debating on whether or not we should release a music video. We filmed one, but we're just kind of not sure whether it's a good idea enough to release it. Our first music video is challenging and our manager had convincing him to sign us. This music video we've got filmed is just so challenging, manager dressed up as some old dude who hates the environment. We challenge him and we kind of got to move around that while performing the song in the threatening way. So you're saying your music video just got you dancing around the same guy that treated you in the last music video? Dusk asked. No, Dawn asked. No offense, but that'd be lame. Don't do that, people are gonna think you're running out of ideas and you replicate your first video. It admittedly hurt a bit to have Dawn be so blunt, but Dusk appreciated her honesty. Clearly Dusk was right about the general public not liking the video, if Dawn felt that way too. Yeah, that's what I was arguing too. Luna kind of wanted to release it, but I don't think it's a good idea. Thanks for your feedback, Dusk answered. Dusk was glad that she had someone outside of the band to bounce her ideas off. She supposed she'd never have to worry whether or not Dawn was being honest. She seemed to have just speak her mind. This time, however, Dusk felt Dawn's response was a little bit over her top negative, but it probably was just Dusk being too sensitive. She was now settled down in her belief that they shouldn't release that music video, at least until they can remake it or something. If Dusk were honest with herself, the amount of thought she had given performing at Haley's tonight was next to none. After performing packed arenas and sold out shows, doing a concert in front of a few people, while drinking some coffee practically felt like a joke. The girls were starting to spend more time at Haley's lately, so at the very least she was doing this few concerts in some place as respected. As the girls performed, they were around 10 people who were listening, although only a few of them were actively watching them. There were a few teens, 20-somethings doing work, and older folks chatting with friends amongst the concert, which Dusk wasn't offended, as she remembered that being dramatic the last time they performed there. We're gonna put a spell on all of you, the girls concluded in allusion. There was no smoke or fans cheering like their non-existent concerts, but they did get a few claps, which Dusk supposed it was better than nothing. Thank you, everyone, Thorne concluded. I just want to end it with a special announcement of our new single, Earth, Wind, Fire, and Air is out now. You could buy your debut album to listen to it. I've also had some exciting news that they've been playing it on the radio. Great job, girls! Haley came up to the girls, very understated in the compliment. Dusk didn't take offense to it though, as she knew Haley wasn't trying to be rude or dismissive. She just simply didn't have a very effusive personality. You did so amazing, Anne chimed in from behind the counter. She appeared to be making a caffeinated milkshake. I especially thought you guys were doing an amazing job. Earth, Wind, Fire, and Air. A familiar voice came up and started talking to the girls. It was the same old man who Dusk didn't remember. from the name who had to many concerts before. He donned gray cargo shorts and black shirt. "You girls really had me tapping my foot today. Oh, I just love how you girls are going to be huge any day now." Dusk couldn't help but smile at the sweet old man. "Thanks. Did you enjoy your first CD, Elmer?" Thorne inquired at first. Dusk wondered why she asked that, since she already remembered having this conversation. However, she quickly realized that seeing him at that store buying the CD album was that moment that no longer existed. It was right after the rift of the timeline. "Woo-wee, you bet I did. Tell them how much I love it, Martha." The old man soon turned to his old wife, who was just approaching the girls walking the cane to help with her balance. She wore a white shawl along with a blue t-shirt with some sort of lake resort and black pants. "He listens to it every time we take a Sunday drive," Martha smiled. "That's awesome," Luna smiled. "That's really sweet," Thorne chimed in. "Thanks for being such a big fan, Elmer." "Of course, ladies. Now if you'll excuse us, Martha and I have to go to a 2 p.m. bingo. Oh, I just know I'm going to be a big winner today," Elmer asserted, as he and Martha slowly walked away. Even for the feelings Dusk had about performing in a coffee shop for 10 people being beneath after performing sold-out arenas, she had to admit how sweet it was for a fan Elmer was of them. It made her happy to know the music she created resonated with somebody so much. If only the rest of the world could feel like Elmer did. Dusk spun around when she saw Dawn walk up to them. "Hey, I unfortunately caught only the last second half of your concert because I accidentally bumped into someone I knew I was on the way here, but I liked your performance. You got some great stage perseverance, even though you were just performing at a coffee shop." "Hey, yeah," Dusk was a little embarrassed due to the way Dawn phrased it. It was pretty meager accomplishment well before the performing your music in a coffee shop. It did not practically a popular one. She tried to redeem herself by turning into a positive. "Well, we really like Haley and Annie, so we wanted to help them out." "That's nice. Well, you get to perform on stage someday." "I just know it," Dawn smiled. "Anyway, I've got a shift here at 2, so I've got to get going." "Good to see you, girls." "Good to see you, too," Dusk responded. She did not talk to her friends yet about wanting to release the music video yet. But after doing this concert, she was 100% convinced that she didn't want to release anything that would risk the subjecting them to only performing at places like this for the rest of her life. Given the meeting with Gus was tomorrow, she felt that she needed to tell Luna and Thorne what she was feeling about the video. This is random, but I've been thinking about the music video, and I don't think we should release it. It would just put too much risk of us putting something that's too similar to our first video." "Like I said before, I'm on complete agreement," Thorne nodded. Luna looked a bit uncertain. "I guess I don't think it's a bad thing to put it out, but I certainly totally get your concern. It's a cute video and I like it, but if you two don't want to put it out, I'm fine with scrapping it." "I guess you're right. It's better to be safe than sorry." "Okay, good. So we all agree? We'll tell Gus tomorrow that we're scrapping the video," Thorne responded. Dusk was quite happy with the decision had gone much easier than she anticipated. If they were ever going to get back to being super famous, performing in venues that real artists would perform in, they would need to come up with something incredible to promote their second single, so the band could get the attention they deserved. Dusk, Thorne, and Luna just headed over to Gus's office of their accustomed meeting with the Thursday afternoon. She told Thorne and Luna about not wanting to release the music video, and Thorne agreed. While Luna had respectively conceded, they were just about to break the news to Gus as they walked through the hallway towards the record studio. As Dusk glanced over the pictures of all the famous musicians, she felt that all of them would have done the same thing if they were in her situation. They were making the right decision to preserve their image as far as Dusk was concerned. "Hey girls," Gus greeted. "How's your week been so far?" "A bit chaotic at the beginning, but it's improving," Thorne responded. Dusk presumed the chaos she was referring to due to the embarrassment of what happened with Mayor Corey, but for her, she wasn't hardly on blip on the radar. She didn't give a crap about what the mayor thought of her. "Yeah, I like to give the assentment," Luna shrugged. "The week's been great," Dusk chimed in. "One of the best in a while." I'm glad to hear it, Gus smiled. I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is that the big competitorly radio station, Salem, has added your song to their playlist. But that was the only station that added this week. I wish I had a bitter news to share with you. Your song isn't as much above as it was last week. It's at 142 on the competitorly hit radio chart with 50 plays on the radio. It would have been 141 if it was not overtaken by turning me on at the Jimmy John's yesterday. Nice, Dusk sarcastically said. I was really hoping a literal joke would be more popular than us. Oh, I'm sorry, but come on, Dusk, Thorn snapped. 142 is still good. Not everyone could write a song that could be played 50 times on the radio in 1 week. Well, that was an alternative reality, Thorn argued back. The fact that we had all songs played about 16,000 times on radio, so 50 is incredibly crazy. See, Dusk snapped. We can't hold up all of our songs as standard or that will drive us batty, Thorn added. Dusk was pretty much done with this argument, so she let out a noise side rather than responding to Thorn. She was in agreement with Thorn, so they couldn't make every song was a number 1 or even top 10. She wanted to put out something that she could at least make the charts. What was the point of celebrating making to 142 on the charts if nobody could see it? Anyway, we made a decision on the music video, and we're not going to put it out. Dusk changed the subject to something more enjoyable. It's just too similar to our first video. We've got to do something more emotive if we're going to make this song into a hit. I'm proud of you girls for making the decision. I'll save the old footage just in case, but I think it's a fair decision to scrap it and come up with something different, Gus answered. However, I will say that I think the raw concept you had was decent and quite usable. I know you girls are very passionate about the environment, and I think the approaching the video from the angle will give the general public an excellent idea of who you are. We actually went to an environmental protest the other day, Luna shared. Dusk didn't mind that she had shared that information in a tidbit with Gus, but Dusk was admittedly a tad bit surprised when she had. Luna was pretty much more private of any of them, so she must really consider Gus a friend to share such a controversial piece of information with him. So what is on the news? Gus asked, non-judgmental. I had read about that, and I don't care for much about tearing up most of the park either. If I'm honest, oh well, I suppose that's a progress. Oh, I've got that idea. Dusk's face lit up with a slightly mischievous look. This was the type that Dawn would absolutely love if she was curious about her bandmates and Gus would think of this idea. What if we re-filmed that video, but instead of Sass and Gus, we have some guy dressed as Mayor Corey that we harass? Thorn's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Before she had the chance to respond, Gus chimed in. His tone seemed a bit surprised, but attempted to remain objective and unbased. Well, that one's a path, I suppose. I will say, though, that I've known a few artists who try to boost their success of drama. It rarely works out for them. Either way, burn themselves out by trying to be more and more shocking and dramatic. So drama dies down, the decline of the career quickly follows. I've taken most of the manageable style that more of a mentorship than telling you that you can't do and what can do. But if I'm putting my 2 cents, do not go down this path. You girls are way too talented to build your image around that. In fact, I would argue that the building's career of drama is often cover for a lack of talent or artistic direction. And if I may put my 2 cents in, Dusk? No, Thorn firmly said. Making a single smear campaign against the mayor would not only cause unnecessary drama between us and our parents, but it's also just plain wrong. The mayor said he didn't have the responsibility for the pipeline. He's just following the county's orders. Okay then, how about we film who's in charge of the country and we dress up a guy like him? Dusk said with a bitter laugh. You're missing Thorn's point, Dusk. It's a trashy look to look a band of the career that is causing drama, Luna argued. We're so much better than that.